Thank you. Yeah, I'm ready. So, yeah, let's start with my presentation. Effective regression testing using an adaptive approach. Someone will say, we know a lot about regression testing. Why just speaking again about regression testing? I'm asking the question, do we need to reinvent the wheel? Of course, the question and the answer is yes, we need to reinvent the wheel. If we were not reinventing the wheel constantly, we will never get to a Mars rover wheel, which is the strongest wheel in the world. So that's why regression testing is something that we are constantly doing. Maybe not wrong, I don't believe in right and wrong, but I believe in useless and useful. So I think that in a lot of approaches, we are doing a useless regression testing. Before we start with my presentation, I will just say, because we're using Slido, enter your questions, preferably in English, please, because I can catch a few words in Russian, but I cannot catch entire sentences. So use Slido constantly, even during I'm talking, don't wait for the last few minutes. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Gйоре Захарчев, coming from Macedonia, working in CIVUS group, like quality assurance line manager. I'm also a software testing consultant, working with clients about software testing. I have 14 plus years hands-on experience with testing, and some part of my time I had some basics with development. Attempts in development. I'm teaching software testing. My teaching attempts started 3 years ago. I live in Macedonia. I started in Serbia on the electronical faculty in Niš. On the master studies, then we had practical exercises for the master studies, and then I decided to give some courses in Macedonia for free at that time, 2 groups I had for free in Macedonia. Then right now I'm teaching software testing at CIVUS Education and Development Center. I'm responsible for the entire software testing academy, all groups. I'm also a speaker at several testing conferences and meetups around the globe. And I like to talk a lot about agile testing and test automation and improvements in testing. So I like to bust the myths about traditional testing. What we're going to talk today, it's how we are doing regression testing. I will show you some models that I've seen and I've heard, because I'm very often, maybe 2 or 3 interviews per day. Every day I'm doing with people in more than 10 countries, and I'm hearing a lot of different approaches about regression testing, but in general there are 2 or 3 common for all of them, and I don't like neither of them, to be honest. In order to understand the regression testing and how to improve it and how to do an efficient regression testing or effective regression testing, we need to understand what is regression testing, the core of the definition of the regression testing. And the last part is how to do an effective regression testing. The question is how we do a regression testing nowadays. Now, I've seen this traditional model. People have some iterative approach still applicable in some banks in Europe. I don't know why, because we also have these clients, and what they're doing, they're performing 1 year or 2 year delivery, and then regression testing is done at the end. There is no time for anything, a lot of regression testing, repeating everything that was tested 10 times at least, just doing the regression testing, having separate war rooms called war rooms, because people are gathered in one room, just doing the testing, fixing the bugs, fixing a lot of bugs, retesting, and regression testing is never efficient because never ends. So having regression testing only once per year or twice per the release. And at the end, when the solution is coming, it's totally missed solution. So the solution is completely something that that the client don't even want it. I will call it agile environment. It's not real agile environment. Why? Because 4 days of 2-week sprint are used for regression testing. Testers are looking for developers, they're asking developers not to do any changes, not to touch the environment, so they are calling the code freeze. I don't believe in code freezes in agile era. That is something common for waterfall model, which should be avoided with the modern applications. Maybe it's still applicable for some systems, but for modern systems, for modern client-oriented applications, market-oriented systems should be avoided. So 4 days is too much. The other approach is when we have a 3-week delivery cycle, 3-week sprint, and we have 1 week dedicated for regression testing. So because developers are getting bored, they're boring, they're getting bored, they don't have some job to do, they are switching to the next sprint, they're starting planning next sprint, testers are 1 sprint behind already, and it is all messed up because testers are not allowing developers to do any development, and they are not allowing developers to do their job for the current sprint. So what kind of agile is when we have 2 parallel sprints? One is testing sprint, one is development sprint. So we cannot talk about agile. We can talk about some sort of water scrum fall, which is, I don't know, not even waterfall, not even scrum. So yeah, this is a pretty bad model. All of these models, actually, the both agile models are pretty bad. So try to avoid them if you're having such model. As I mentioned, they're trying to introduce something called code freeze. So no one is allowed to touch anything in the code. Millions of defects exist over there. A long execution period, 4 days or 5 days is too much for 3-week sprint. Focusing on non-functional things like boundary value analysis, something that should be tested a long time ago at the beginning of the sprint during the development of that part. Test suits are constantly increased. This is the model, and this is very interesting approach. I've heard several times, and the latest is when I had an interview with a girl from Macedonia, and I asked her how you will improve that your test suite is constantly increased and you're never removing tests. And her answer, she answered me, I'm not allowed to remove tests from my regression testing. I can only add tests to my regression testing. But how you're going to solve that problem, because you're now 2-3 persons, and how you will overcome this issue? Her answer was, yeah, that's why I want to leave my current company, because they're not hiring more people. I can solve this problem only by hiring more people. And I'm sitting like this and just hearing this nonsense, how we will hire more people. So I'm saying that means in sprint 10, we need to hire at least 5 more people? Yeah, but how about in sprint, I don't know, 25, when we will have 1 year of the development? We need to have at least, I don't know, 100 testers. And she said, yeah, that's the point. That's how we are going to do the regression testing. Otherwise, it's impossible. So yeah, the decision was pretty obvious. My decision was pretty obvious at the moment that girl will not work with me in my company, because she, with her 15 years of experience, because she introduced with 15 years of experience like test manager, has that opinion that regression testing is something that we need to hire a lot of people. In order to solve these problems, and there are so many other problems over there, in order to solve them, we need to understand what is actually the regression testing, why we are doing the regression testing. So if we ask the developers, the regression testing, I'm fixing a bug, I don't care about the newly introduced bugs. So if I open my door, yeah, the flea will go out, but a lot of new will come in. So that's why this is very bad thinking, because developers think, yeah, you need to retest everything. I don't know why what I have changed, and so on. Very simple definition from Wikipedia. Regression testing is a type of software testing that ensures that the previously developed and tested software still performs the same way after it is changed or interfaced with other software. Changes may include software enhancements, patches, configuration changes, etc. During regression testing, new software bugs or regressions may be uncovered. Sometimes a software change impact analysis is performed to determine which areas could be affected by the proposed changes. So, in general, the definition is clear, but same like the laws in one country. Anyone can understand how they need them. So, if a company needs to, or if the government needs to do something that is illegal, they will try to describe the law what is good for them. So it doesn't mention what is the criteria, how should interact, how should do the testing. There are several techniques for regression testing. One is regression test selection. Actually, the top one is retest all. So this approach is used in waterfall model. So everything that was tested so far, all my test cases need to be retested again. Which sometimes, maybe when you will say it like that, it makes sense, but when you need to do it in practice, doesn't make sense at all. Then the better approach is regression test selection. Yeah, I need to select several tests, but what is the thing that I need to select? So that is the question. So I will select from each flow, even that flow is never changed during the sprint. I will select some tests just to ensure, because the previous definition said maybe something will be changed. Prioritization of test cases. So also people are doing this. So have all just combination with retest all, but start providing 3 or 4 levels of prioritization, like critical, high, medium, low. So starting with critical, if they finish, going to the high. If they don't finish, just stopping there. But is this model still good model? Because we will lose a lot of time. Because every sprint we are not doing so many changes. We are not changing everything. And the hybrid model is maybe the best solution that we need to come. But what is the definition for the hybrid model? So I can combine all of them. Yeah, but again, I didn't solve my problem. And again, I will lose 4 or 5 days from my sprint, half of my sprint to do the regression testing. Also, the other thing, if I'm repeating every sprint my tests, I will come to the pesticide paradox. If the same tests are repeated over and over again, eventually the same set of test cases will no longer find any new defects. So that is the pesticide paradox introduced 20 or 30 years ago, actually, yeah, 30 years ago. So again, I'm not coming to the point that I'm not going to find crucial defects. I will just, my application will be immune to my tests, to my test cases. So how to overcome this problem? If my application is immune to this test case, that means that I have a lot of bugs. So I'm coming to the principle that absence of defects in any defect tracking system is not a proof for a high quality application. I need to come to some better solution. Some facts about the current regression testing. Regression testing is performed when changes are made to the existing functionality of the software, or if there is a bug fix in the software. Oh, one clue of my criteria. Regression testing is performed and should be performed when changes are made to the existing functionality of the software, or if there is a bug fix in the software. How can I know these things? Very simple. We have softwares for project management like Jira, like Breadmine, HPLM, a lot of softwares that have user stories. What we've changed? And we've changed in these parts. Because we are agile, we have communication with the developers. I can sit with the developer, even on Skype or any solution for conferencing, and I can say, what did you change exactly? And I will get the answer. Yeah, you've changed that. So I have the answer of this question now. The other fact is regression testing can be achieved through multiple approaches. If a test all approaches follow it, it provides certainty that the changes made to the software have not affected the existing functionalities, which are unaltered. But that means that if we apply this solution, the regression testing will take days, even weeks and months, and we don't have that time. And that means that pesticide paradox solution may appear. Pesticide paradox may appear. The other fact, in an agile project management process where the software development life cycles are very short, resources are scarcity, and changes to the software are very frequent, regression testing might introduce a lot of unnecessary overhead. As I said in the previous point, if we are following that approach, we may lose weeks and months. And what we are going to do, we are not going to get any benefit. Someone will say, we can automate this. Yeah, you can automate that, but can you find 50 machines to run these tests in 24 hours? Again, if you're running on one machine, you can speed up the time by some percentage, but you cannot speed by 1,000%. So again, you will not have fast results. So you need to increase the automation team now. So anyone need to do a lot of automated tests. Maintaining the tests is the problem, not developing the tests. Performing regression testing on third-party components is difficult because it's an unknown entity. I've seen a lot of projects because I'm involved in all of the projects in CVS. I've been involved in all of the projects in my previous companies. And a lot of people are starting testing. For example, we are using some payment proxy, and people are starting to testing this proxy first from the API level, then from the web UI level, but we don't know anything except that this is the request they expect, this is the response they are giving. They are not providing any documentation to us. They're not providing, they're just some integration points, which in a lot of cases were different in the sandbox environment and different in production environment. So we implement a lot of tests that were useless. Why? Why testing someone else's software? They are not paying to us to test their software. So if we find something in their response, we just need to adapt our requests to what they're expecting, because maybe they are also a buggy software. A lot of payment proxies we have nowadays, and a lot of are under development still. So yeah, no one is paying us. We are still paying them to use their solution. How to do an effective regression testing? This is the biggest question. What to do if I know all of these things, what to do now? There is a heuristic called recent core risky configuration repaired in chronic. So RC stands for that, recent core risky configuration repaired in chronic. It's a very interesting heuristic for test selection when doing regression testing. So we have recent. What was developed recently? Usually when we are doing this, we're at least covering some tests of our current with the sanity test first of all, and then with the testing that we are performing. Core functionalities. Yeah, we're covering core functionalities in our smoke test on daily basis. So we don't need to worry a lot about reinventing and doing a separate list for this test. So we already have these two things. So my recent list is every sprint is updated, every sprint is changed. My core list is just adding tests, sometimes maybe removing something, and I have this list constantly. I don't need to come to something new. Then we have risky, something that is, for example, if we have this taxation, is this taxation working, is applied correctly? Then configuration sensitive things. What will happen if I deploy to another environment? For example, I'm still in some QA environment and I need to deploy to staging. I need to test sending emails. I need to test sending SMS, and so on. Am I connected to the correct third-party softwares? Then repaired. We have a list of what was repaired. We have the list of all defects. I reported the defect. I know what is repaired and not. Just need to do one round of testing. In chronic, we also know what is constantly broken in the system. So if we get to this list, we will go one by one of these items and go to further details. So let's go by the recent list. What new features or new areas of code has been added? So we are discussing this on our grooming sessions, on our sprint planning sessions. We are constantly discussing this. As I already mentioned, we know we are already testing this. We know what was recently added. So if we don't know, we can ask at least, is there beside these things, this, and this, is there some other change? We can do this on the daily meeting. So we will increase the list. Answer the question, what changed recently? Yeah, we already answered that. What testing around these changes should I think about? Because we are testers, we know all interactions between components. We can come easily to the list of components that can be affected by this change. So we know if someone changes in the database about user registration, most probably that change will interact with the update user functionality. So yeah, let's test this functionality also because it interacts with it. About the core, I already mentioned, we already have the smoke test. What essential or critical functions or features must continue to work. So this is the core of the system. If we don't know the core, we cannot continue with the testing. What does this application primarily do? This application doesn't do 100 things. Usually applications are very, narrowed, and they're doing several things. So applications cannot do millions of things. So basically, if we do the smoke testing, the build verification testing, I don't know, in some 10, 15, half an hour, going beyond that is not anymore smoke test. We just need to extend it a little bit more. So it's not going to the eternity, it's going to be in reasonable time. What is risky? Which features or areas of code are inherently more risky? So because our application is selling products, we are risky part is, can we cancel the order? Can we update the order? Can we proceed the payment? Let's say like that, because I'm just hypothetically speaking about an e-commerce solution. What features for the application do I want to safeguard? So what are the features and applications that I want to safeguard? If my application is new at the moment and I want to gather more and more clients and users over the internet, I need to ensure that the registration feature is the crucial. I need to make sure that this registration feature is top one priority in my testing. If my system has already, I don't know, millions of users and only one user per week comes, this is not risky. It doesn't have any severity because we need to safeguard the already existing users. If there is a problem with one user, we can easily fix it in the database. We can do something. Functionality that are there for the existing users should be safeguarded. Configuration. The second C is about configuration, meaning what code is dependent on environment settings. What testing do I want to plan based on the environment? And this testing might include planning a subset of test production after go live. So as I said, if we're transferring from one environment to another, we need to ensure that these configuration settings, like right now I have a sandbox PayPal connection in my QA environment. But if I go in production, I need to make sure that I have the production connection. So when going to production, I need to choose a set of these tests also to safeguard. Most often we are just doing the build verification testing. Just trying to log in, register a user, log in, update something, do a payment. Yeah, that's all. But what if we have features that are connecting to some other systems that are configuration related? Very often, not all systems have these configuration related things. What to do with this heuristic? It says configuration. Should I put tests by any price? Of course not. So if you don't have anything in that criteria, don't try to find tests. Don't try to increase the number of tests just because it says so. You can skip any of these RC, RC, or C, R or C. You can skip any of these if you don't have tests for that. So why just adding something just to be there present when there is no need for that? Repair. This is the thing that we are testing only once. Yeah, the bug is fixed. I'm just closing it. But very often this is the most problematic part. Why? Because maybe nowadays it's easier to find the fixes because developers are using distributed version control systems like Git. But long time ago, a few years ago when Git was not so popular, merge requests were overriding code. People were doing the merging pretty manual, let's call it like that, and they were overriding all changes that were done so far. So we need to run another round of fixed defects, at least the critical and high impact defects, to make sure that they are still working. So we retested 20-30 defects during the sprint. We can retest them in no time because we know what we need to do. And we need to extend a little bit based on the defect fixes. Chronic part is about constantly broken things. There are two possible solutions here. Either to do complete code refactoring on this area, because we have chronic things in the last 3 sprints. So this is the first solution. Either fire the developer, because if we have the same developer and he is constantly breaking these things, he needs to be changed. Firing is one of the solutions. Yeah, maybe it's I'm just joking that firing, but definitely code refactoring and checking by more experienced developer should be the solution. So these defects, we should solve them on these 2 ways. We shouldn't keep this forever. Yeah, that's chronic, that's constantly broken, so we will just forget about that. Yeah, just come to the solution that code refactoring is pretty important in this part. Data migrations. People are very often testing only. Yeah, I will register a new user. I will do this and this. But what about the old users? What about users that were migrated from different old systems? What about the users that are coming from the first sprints? Of course, we need to run some tests with this set of data also. Infrastructure-related tests. People are mostly focusing on the UI UX, 2 pixels left, 2 pixels right. That is not about the regression testing. So just run some infrastructure-related tests. Just run some load and stress tests. Some performance tests will help you to understand and to see, is something broken in the infrastructure, because there some change in the code broke something in the current in the infrastructure. Maybe my application is unable to hold the load that was planned to do. Time, just answer several questions. Before you decide how much time you will allocate for regression testing, just make sure how frequent are our releases, how often we are getting late tests. Are developers still delivering even on the last day? If they're delivering, if you answer, for example, if our releases are frequent, we need to do the regression testings pretty fast. We need to do it in hours, in less than we are getting on daily basis, even the last day of my sprint. So it's normal to get late change requests. If you already put some sort of a code freeze, you will unable to accept this late change request. Yeah, developers will do it without your approval, and the code will go to production without any testing. So your code is broken, already broken. Why did you do the regression testing at all? Are my testing colleagues available at the time dedicated for the regression testing? Just plan the time. If you have a team of 2-3 team members, just try to see, is anyone on vacation? How about some plans to switch on something else, because someone maybe will be with some percentage of the time allocated on your project. So plan these things, check these things, and answer the question, is my previous story testing? Well, no, you didn't do you failed on the story testing on the first point. Regression testing will not save you. That's why the list provided there will save you. The criteria will save you more, because at least you will test the main flows, main functionalities, and you will not need to go to details. But if I constantly change this criteria, what will happen? Because I am spending too much time with writing traditional test cases. Forget about traditional test cases. Maintain simple checklists. A very simple checklist with 7 to 10 words in the summary will help you to understand what you need to test. Track the results. On every item, track the results during the weeks. You will find what is chronic. You will see was something tested good enough or not, because sometimes maybe someone will just, yeah, this was tested, and just write that this passed. If you don't want to maintain checklists or any written text, use mind maps. Mind maps will help you a lot to simplify your tests and your checklists. Documentation should be easy to use, easy to update. If you're spending time on updating the documentation, you're doing something wrong. Documentation should not waste a lot of time on updating, because this is something constantly changeable. So we have two, in the recent core risky configuration repair and chronic, we have dynamic tests and we have static tests. Recent is something that is constantly changed. Core is something that is static. It's always here. Also, reduced waste to zero. If you are just throwing a lot of tests, you're writing them, throwing them during the sprint, re-updating them, doing something wrong again. Avoid Excels, Word, and other similar tools. Use the same tools, tables in the same tools, like Jira, for example, because we're using Jira and 99% of our clients are using Jira. Just use the same tool. Jira has the latest versions, they have pretty good functionalities, how you can manage that. And in that table, in that simple checklist, you can just connect the defect that you reported. So you cannot close the regression testing if not all of the defects and blockers were retested. So you can connect them and see what is still ongoing. Automate. People, when automating, they're forgetting and they're doing a lot of UI tests. I had a colleague in Belgrade office that spent 6 months and automated 176 tests only related to the login. He didn't automate anything beyond that. Automating the login, you need only one test and a data-driven approach. You don't need to automate the entire UI. It's just wasting of time. Automate data creation. Sometimes in in softwares for insurance and stuff like that, in banking softwares where something need to pass at least 2 to 3 days. So don't just do it manually, automate this process so you will have at least you will have good data to test that. First of all, start with the web services. Create solid tests with the web services. Some will say them integration tests, but they will be also functional tests because you can interrelate several flows. Automate the user interface, but not in details. Automate some performance tests. As I mentioned, infrastructure is pretty important. What are the summary and recommendation from this presentation? Regression testing with the current traditional approach is too long and very often useless. Yeah, trust me, I've seen a lot of, because I'm working on and I'm involved in more than 25, 30 projects at this time. I'm working with more than 100 people. Regression testing is something that will make the customer happy or unhappy. If we're doing the traditional approach, a lot of time is wasted. Regression testing should focus on testing changed or impacted areas of the system. So if we know that something was changed, for example, as I said in the registration, in some database table, we also need to see what that area is impacting. Not only, yeah, that was changed and we forget about the impacts. Having clear and reliable criteria for the regression testing can help you a lot to deliver high quality product in faster time. If someone asks me about the time, how much time I need for regression testing, I will say, am I the only tester at the sprint? How long is the sprint? What's the length of the sprint? Is it 2 week, 3 week sprint? Let's assume it's a 2 week sprint. Let's assume I'm the only tester and I have 3 to 4 developers with me. I will say you need less than 4 hours to do the regression testing. Anything beyond these 4 hours, you just wasted a lot of time on something that was irrelevant for this testing. Regression testing in agile environment should be testing performed in reasonable time. As I already mentioned, reasonable time is less than a half a day, not a day, because the last day we are constantly having changes. Adapting some positive experiences should be the step one, but you need to adapt it according to your current needs in order to benefit. This is the biggest problem that we're doing. When let's say I'm telling you a solution, we are blindly following sometimes that solution without thinking how this will be adapted to my projects, how this will be adapted to my setup. Because I'm working with one setup of projects, I'm working with one setup of people, but do I have people ready for this? And do I need stages to change the mindset of the people working on the regression testing? So try to adapt it according to what you have at the moment. Do not try to adapt based on how you understand it on some presentation or on YouTube or etc. Using heuristics such as RC will help you to accomplish faster regression testing and focus on the impacted areas. This is the step one that we need to achieve. We don't need to test something that doesn't bring any business value, something that was developed years ago, that was not touched. Maybe just running a simple build verification test is just enough. And yeah, that's all my presentations. All my presentation now is the part with the questions. So are there any, one question. What is your ideal Scrum sprint for testing or any other Agile framework testing? Yes, I've worked with Scrum, Scrumban, Kanban, Lean development, and a lot of things. Scrumban, maybe, let's say, call it like that, is the most efficient model for me. But Scrumban with 1 week delivery cycle. I had also such approach with daily deliveries, some sort of DevOps, but it was more Scrumban. We were providing, because the application was pretty new, and we were providing solution to our stakeholders on daily basis, and they were pretty satisfied. That's why 1 week delivery is the best approach for me in a Scrum environment. The daily stand-ups are very useless to me, because telling what I did yesterday, what I will do tomorrow, and are there any impediments? A colleague of mine was talking, I didn't do anything yesterday, but you're talking that you're explaining that pretty well. So that is what I believe in. What is your, you should get places for the regression testing. When actually should it be taken then? If you automate the regression testing, it should be done on daily basis. After every deployment, regression testing should be done. If you're doing, if you are automating it. If you're doing it manually, then regression testing should be done the last day of the sprint. What is the next question? Oops, I saw a lot of questions. Where are the questions? CI/CD pipelines, where does it fit and should be part of automation triggers or maybe on demand? Depends on system to system, and depends how much time it needs to be executed. If your deployments are overnight while you're not at work, should be integrated with the existing CI/CD pipelines. If it's not, if you're deploying several times per day, then it should be done on demand during the hours when you're not at work. The most important rule is to correctly define a set of cases, and the duration of regression depends on the type of functional changes. Yeah, based on the definition, based on the criteria, if you have the selection criteria, if you wisely choose the set of cases, then the regression testing will be done. And the time based on that, because we don't have 1,000 developers, we have limited number of developers, so the number of hours will be the number of time, the time that needed for the regression testing will be reasonable at this point. So, yeah, are there any questions? Because I saw more questions previously, but now I don't see them. Did you delete them, or how it goes? No, there is no silver bullet. RC is not a silver bullet, and there is no silver bullet. I don't believe in silver bullets. That's why I'm constantly trying different approaches. How often do you do RC analysis? To be honest, because I have a pretty normal set of cases, and I know what I need to test for my application, my system. I'm doing this maybe on daily basis, and I know, yeah, this is a good item to my list. I'm just adding to my list. So I'm constantly doing that as part of the. I don't believe also in stages like, yeah, now we'll have integration, now system testing, now we will do the regression. Everything is in my opinion, everything should be a part of one activity, because I'm seeing the testing as one activity, and we should think on all aspects, not dedicate time to do analysis and plan it. How often do you do? Okay, how long, in your opinion, the regression testing should perform in percent to release time? As I said, it should take very small amount of time, preferable less than 10%, 10%, less than that, 5% will be ideal, because we have changes even the last day. We are developing the last day. If we start the regression testing on Monday and need to deploy on Friday, we will miss millions of times to test them, millions of things to test them. So that's why it should be a reasonable time, and it should be, as I said, if you automate the things, it should be part of your CI/CD pipeline. So it should be executed in reasonable time. Are there any other questions? So I don't see. Did I answer all the questions? Because I saw a lot of questions, then some of them disappeared. And if I didn't answer them, you can contact me at any time. So my email, Gjore.Zakharchev@civus.com, and you can contact me. And yeah, let me just type it for you somewhere here. And you can send me any questions, and we can discuss about different things. No more questions. So thank you, guys. Thank you for your time, and I hope it was helpful to you, and you will develop some ideas for the regression testing.
Thank you, Gjore.
Thank you.